everyone. Today we have Dr. Maury Estes, who is supporting the NASA's Earth Science Office as a contractor since 1987 in the management of the science and education program as well as earth science research. His current activity include supporting a portfolio of projects focusing on the marine environment for the ecological forecasting, programming, and developing unique remote sensing products for water quality remote application. So, hi, Dr. Maury Estes. How are you?
Chris, how you doing?
Yeah, doing good, doing good. So we had since I like work under your guidance. I think in the fall 2020, we had a really amazing time to dealing with the complex research work. So I would like to ask you about what is your journey till now, and what is your education journey and your childhood enthusiasm to join as a research scientist and to becoming a research scientist.
Okay, well, let me start. I um, attended undergraduate school, University of Alabama. I, at the time, was not sure that I wanted to work in the sciences or really exactly or engineering or possibly even another type career. So I ended up studying a pretty broad liberal arts type curriculum and trying to decide what I wanted to do. Some of the classes I really liked were some biology classes, physical geography, as it was called at the time, which was actually, in part something that related to Earth system science.
Yes.
Anyway, I got interested in urbanization and planning and different processes and dynamics that relate to how cities are built and also the consequential land cover land use changes. And so I went over to Georgia Tech to graduate school and I got a graduate degree that was based in environmental sciences with a policy component too. It was actually through the College of Architecture and Civil Engineering programs, a joint program. And shortly after that, I came to work for NASA and supporting the Earth Science Office in 1987, and have been supporting that office in various ways ever since. Most of the work has been applied, supporting the NASA Applied Sciences Office. I've worked on projects that relate to public health, air quality, as well as ecological forecasting over that time, all using various remotely sensed data sets to try to gain new knowledge about environmental problems, to help develop products and decision tools to help end users, policymakers, different individuals at agencies that are trying to improve society, improve the quality of life for people, whether it's better water, better air, or just better conservation of natural resources. During that period, I did decide to go back to school and pursue a PhD, which I achieved through a joint program actually through Alabama A&M UAH and the University of South Alabama. I did field work in Dauphin Island, University of South Alabama. Studied horseshoe crabs, which is a really interesting animal. They're a type of ancient mariner. They've been around for millions of years through a number of different climate periods. And because of that, they're considered a sentinel or type of sentinel for climate change. So hopefully by studying the history of horseshoe crabs and how they've evolved, we can maybe learn some things to help people deal with climate change better too. So I have a lot of interest in the ocean, especially in different types of marine animals in the nearshore areas. So I guess that's my history up to today. So again, I've worked on a number of projects, more than probably too numerous to mention, in the various areas that I described.
Mm-hmm. So what is your PhD thesis was like? What is the title of your PhD thesis?
Well, the focus was studying, looking at the environmental attributes and associated dynamics for horseshoe crabs in the northern Gulf of Mexico, to try to get a better understanding of the type conditions that allow them to spawn and forage and basically live and thrive versus those areas where that certain toxins are in the environment or areas where that they are not able to find suitable habitat. Some of the areas I surveyed among the barrier islands there from Mobile Bay about halfway over toward the Mississippi River outcharge, there'd been no formal surveys ever done for horseshoe crabs. Horseshoe crabs are known to exist over in parts of western Mississippi over to parts of Louisiana, and they're also known to exist in Florida, but there was a gap there where there really wasn't much data and understanding of horseshoe crab populations in that part of the Gulf of Mexico. So by doing surveys on Dauphin Island, Petty Boy Island, Fort Morgan Peninsula, and Horn Island, I was able to at least establish some foundation data sets to understand why some of these animals seem to prefer some of these regions that were in between the Mobile Bay outflow and the Mississippi River outflow, which is the fourth largest discharge of water from Mobile Bay in the United States, and the Mississippi River being the first largest discharge. So there's a lot of nutrients, a lot of sediment, a lot of material, pollutants that come into the water in those areas, and so that's one reason we found that horseshoe crabs tend to not be so prevalent near those discharges, but actually in areas about in between or equidistant from those two discharges is where we found the most evidence of horseshoe crabs in the most live animals, where there was calm water, where there was some protection from wave energy, which is something that's a hazard to these animals near the shore. If they get flipped over, they can't get up and can't get off their back, and so shorebirds and so forth feed on them and kill them. So we actually gained quite a bit of understanding in terms of areas where that we should consider conservation to try to help preserve these small populations in this area.
That's fascinating. So, like in your research work, you have focused on which area, like in the Mississippi River, as like I think it's passed to the center of the United States, if I'm not wrong. Near to the center, it has a big river, right, which divide in the the East Coast and West Coast, right? So all the environmental contamination involve like amalgamate with the water so that it affect the horse crabs, and your focus is the what type of factors which decide the population of the horse crabs near that river, right?
That's correct. We used we actually collected in situ data in the field from boats, along with actually surveying for live animals, carcasses, and motes or exoskeletons. They do have a mote or exoskeleton as these animals become adults, approximately once a year. And when they're younger animals or juveniles or growing, they have multiple exoskeletons. So we found evidence of spawning young animals in some areas, and then we found actually some live animals in some areas, as well as adult skeletons and carcasses. But we were looking at variables like water temperature, water clarity, dissolved oxygen in the water, and we also used remote sensing temperature data as well to look at the larger domain, as well as wind speed and wind direction, because that influences
the water flow,
the waves and the wind energy. And the lunar cycle is important in terms of the animals foraging and spawning, and so we did our surveys based on full and new moons, 2-week intervals, and we tried to also survey near high tide, because animals, like a lot of fish species as well, fishermen know this, ride the tides to come in near shore on high tide. So we tried to survey within plus or minus a couple of hours of high tide, and we did it during the day just for safety reasons. Some of the areas and so forth are hard to get to, not really safe to survey along the shoreline at night. So we just surveyed near high tide on these new and full moon intervals.
So I'm sure like you did a lot of surveys during your PhD thesis, and also after your PhD in like all course of your career, you did a lot of surveys, right? So what is the main challenge you have found in the survey process according to your research works?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand. You're talking about the horseshoe crab surveys?
Yeah. Let's say first of all, focusing on that. So, what type of challenges you have found during that surveys?
Well, there are a lot of challenges in doing any sort of field work like that, whether you're studying crabs or trying to do a different kind of survey, weather. I had a hurricane one year. I couldn't
Oh.
survey then.
Uh-huh.
Sometimes it was stormy or rainy, we were able to survey. But if it was too rough, I mean, for small boats to get out safely, then we would have to delay or not do a survey for that period. So,
Mhm.
and I mean, you can't include, so really you just have a no data period as opposed to a zero. I mean, if you can't go out and check, you can't assume a zero, right? So you
Yes.
can't assume there were no animals there, and you can't get environmental data either on the conditions. Even though you could get some information from remote sense data, we couldn't actually get out in the field and check dissolved oxygen and temperature near the bottom and things like that, water clarity, like we normally did. So you had gaps in your data, so you had to deal with how to manage that in terms of statistics and analyses that you were going to do. So with this
Yes.
particular animal and type survey I was doing, those were some of the main challenges.
I see. I see. So, well, I think that type of service took a lot of time because, yeah, you were right. When the critical condition exists, you kind of in your data sheet you have blank space, and you have to deal with that blank space. How, uh, like, one might use just to extract. You cannot put a zeros, but like people has to use some statistical methods to extrapolate the trend basically. Yes, so it's a critical important during research work. Yeah, that thank you for the highlighting that particular segment. So let's move forward to your journey in the teaching career at UH and also the work at NSSTC, National Space
Okay.
Science Center.
Well, I taught actually with Dr. Donald Perky, who's since retired. It was a professor here at UAH, and
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Cruz provided some assistance too, and other faculty. But I was able to begin teaching the first hydrology course in the undergraduate program, basically a natural water cycle class, as opposed to engineering hydrology, which focused more on design and structures, culverts, pipes, and so forth than my class. And it became a required class in the Earth System Science
Mm-hmm.
undergraduate curricula for some of the tracks, remote sensing and GIS tracks. And I taught that class for a little over 10 years, started in 2009.
Mm-hmm.
And in 2015, we also, along with Dr. Cruz and others in the department, were able to start a graduate class in hydrology. And I taught that every other year through 2019. And
Mm-hmm.
at that point in time, decided to step back from regular teaching. And Dr. Lee Ellenberg is now teaching both the undergraduate class, and this year we'll for the first time be teaching the graduate class as the
Oh.
primary instructor. Dr.
Mm-hmm.
Ellenberg did help with some of the modules in the graduate class prior to this year. So a little over a decade. I love teaching.
Yes.
It's a lot of hard work. I mean,
Yeah.
it takes a lot of preparation. That's something I didn't fully appreciate before I began teaching, but I really enjoyed that, and there's a lot of rewards to teaching. And in addition to teaching, and I still work with students on summer projects and things of that nature, and I support some students that are research assistants on current projects, like you helped with a project last year. And so I really enjoy that. And some of the students, of course, use the work that they're doing on projects that are funded to develop senior projects and capstone projects and things
Mhm.
like that. So I enjoy
Yeah.
seeing them succeed and learn and progress with their education that way. So
Yeah, I'm sure. Uh, I also like become from student to TA. So I have to teach the labs. So I realized that teaching gives like you have to now explain the concepts in a simple manner to the students. So you want to make sure you grasp each and every concept properly. So it's a rewarding experience, I would say, during teaching. So yeah, that's true indeed. So, can you tell me what type of projects you have done with students at UH or maybe in another universities or anything? What type of projects you have done so far?
well, I mean, I've worked with numerous students over the last 15 to 20 years. So uh, projects have typically ranged from using remote sensing data to evaluate public health issues. We we've had a collaboration with the CDC, Centers for Disease Control, over in Atlanta for about the last 15 years. And actually, that was one of the, I guess, anchor agencies, if you will, that actually with NASA was responsible for starting the public health applications program at NASA headquarters. And we've been working with the Environmental Public Health Tracking Network. And so we've worked with students to develop protocols and processes to effectively download and process different environmental data sets that are of interest to the CDC and epidemiologists to use to look at correlations between different types of disease incidents or environmental hazards, if you will, and how that might relate to different types of health conditions, like, for example, poor air or ozone levels or air quality, and how that might relate to different types of respiratory infections, or asthma, for example, would be one of the areas that we did some work on. I worked with students on some of the horseshoe crab habitat suitability analysis. We did some additional work on that with an REU student, an NSF student over the past couple of years. I work with students on developing a conceptual model that included remote sensing data to study manatee habitat off Belize on a project last year. That was a quite interesting project. There was another student that was interested in trying to see if some remotely sensed data sets in shallow water could be used to evaluate the health of coral reefs. So we did some work with that. This also was some of the reefs off the shore of Belize, and also some of the Florida Keys we looked at too in that case. And, you know, in that incident, I've worked with students on different projects looking at remotely sensed data, Landsat, MODIS in particular, evaluating land cover land use change scenarios, extent of change detection, and how that might be affecting areas in terms of rate of deforestation, things of that nature, and what some of the drivers may be in terms of modeling, growth modeling, looking at rates of urbanization, population change, and how that's affecting natural resources. One of the big, interesting, exciting things going on right now is natural capital accounting, and it's a way to start. Some methods are being developed so that we can start to look at development proposals and not just understand what the economic benefit may be, or the benefit may be in terms of jobs or taxes or that sort of thing, but also look at what is the real value of the resources that might be lost for that development to occur, in terms of are you going to damage the water quality? Are you going to change the flow of water? Are you going to cut down a lot of trees? Are you going to remove sensitive coastal ecosystems or wetlands or things of that nature? And we can now put a dollar value on those kind of natural systems, and to help balance that against what the economic value is, and hopefully make better decisions in the future on where and when to develop what.
Of course, like economical value of the natural resources, for example, tree and water quality, play a very vital role. And also because we are kind of all connected, so we need pure waters and pure natural resources for our health too. Otherwise, the degradation of health because of the couple of environmental problems, for example, global warming is one of the problem. We should take care of more in the economic sides, and stop to industries stop to ruin the natural resources irregularly without any rules and regulation. So so these are the new projects you are working on with the students, or the as an institution in the NASA, like in the NSSTC.
Well, these projects have been funded in various ways, typically through NASA programs that fund summer internships, or in some cases, students have been paid or funded by existing projects that I'm working on in other faculty.
I see.
So it's been a mixture of, summer internship programs and existing research projects.
Okay. So, let's go back a little bit, and Can you tell me what is exactly the earth science and how this differed to the space science or any other domain? What are the main pillars in the earth science uh, which people or students who are enthusiastic in this domain might enter in this? I think one is the water quality control. What are the other type of main pillars? Can you talk about that?
Well, there's a multitude of, which is one of the exciting things about the earth sciences, I think, or system science. There's a multitude of areas that students might could focus their interest toward. I mean, you've got the atmosphere, the air. You mentioned water. Well, you got the water cycle too, which relates to the atmospheric cycle, and then you've got the terrestrial cycle, which interacts with both the atmosphere as well as the hydrologic cycle in terms of runoff. And you got nutrients, agriculture that's affecting the air, as well as the quality of water in the streams and coastal areas, because you got a lot of pollution and nutrients, and,
Mhm.
excess fertilizers and nitrogen and phosphorus. So, within those areas, there's so many things that are of interest that could be studied. I mean, you could focus on marine regions, you
Mhm.
could focus on fisheries, you focus more on the land sea interface and coastal regions, which are some of the most highly diverse, highest biodiversity and interesting dynamics. Some areas that are extremely difficult to study with remote sensing data because they are so dynamic. They're changing so much. You've always got water discharging. The color of the water is changing. The clarity of the
Yes.
water is changing, and so there's a lot of challenges in studying estuaries in those regions. There's a lot of interest in certainly in deforestation and preserving our forests and managing them effectively.
Mhm.
Certainly energy extraction, mining, geologic concerns there. So really, you got geology, biology, right?
Mhm.
You got even some
Yes.
components of civil engineering
Yes, indeed.
there that would be of interest. You got all sorts of oceanography, certainly marine biology. I mean,
Mhm.
we know more about the universe and the planets and the moons than we know about what's in our ocean at depths thousands
Yes.
of meters down. So there's a whole region of our world that we really don't know much about at all. There's new species there that we don't understand, have never seen, yet to be discovered, and there's potentially energy sources there that could do a lot of good in terms of meeting the global energy needs. And there's also potentially extraction challenges there where we could do a lot of harm to the ocean environment if we don't extract those minerals or energy sources the right way. Uh, so
Yeah.
it's broad and it's exciting. And one of the cool things about that is that with satellite data, with remote sensing data, that there's so much of the world that we can study with that.
Yes.
And especially if you're interested in studying in terms of a large region or globally, and remote sensing data has tremendous advantages in terms of high temporal
Mhm.
resolution. You get data very frequently, and you
Yes.
can get data on large regions in the whole world. And that's something we can't do just going out in the field in a boat or in a car if we're on land or some sort of vehicle. We can't do that. So remote sensing really has a lot of benefits to Earth system science, but
Mhm.
limitations too. If you're talking about mining or deep ocean and those kind of
Yeah.
areas, then
It's difficult
we
to get.
need we need different type of technology. We need different type of instruments and vehicles to help us go deep in the ocean and gather data
Mhm.
and understand.
Yeah, so is it the sonar will be the like alternative option to map out the uh, like bottom of the ocean? What is the structure at the bottom of the ocean? The sonar is one of the technology, or what type of other technologies, or the techniques the scientists are using right now to resolve this issue where the remote sensing data or the satellites cannot reach? What are the other techniques?
Yeah, I mean, really, acoustics or sonar would be part of the whole acoustics technology. Is one way that we can measure the terrain
Mhm.
at the bottom of the ocean, and that's also a way that we can, again, depending on studying how sound travels and reacts, and
Yes.
also even actually the nature of sound. The different sounds that
Yes.
we're hearing in the
Mhm.
ocean helps us understand fisheries better, the movement of different type of species in the ocean, and in some cases we're able to understand from the sound and the signal and the particular kind of sound, the type species that we're seeing, or we can actually identify that it's not just a school of fish, for example, or a certain type of ecosystem, but or an ecosystem, we can determine the species of fish in some cases, or
Yeah.
even the type of ecosystem or type of material that's interacting with the sound. And something that a little more recent, scientists have been studying the mix of sounds in different ecosystems as a way to determine the biodiversity and whether or not biodiversity is being lost by this whole collection and mixture
Uh-huh.
of sounds that you're hearing, for example, from a coral reef system. We can determine if biodiversity is stable or increasing or decreasing.
Oh, so basically the scientists are determining so they are getting the sound signals from the ocean, or and based on that signal, they kind of decide that what is the like harmonics in the sound determines the particular species which exist down the ocean. Okay, that's amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're still
yeah,
learning. I mean, certain systems and species have distinct sounds, and as time goes by, we're understanding more about
yes. Okay, okay. Uh-huh. So, yeah, this pretty amazing projects. So, can you tell me what are the big projects which you think might affect, like what are the big projects NASA or NSSTC working on, which has a bigger impact, down the road in terms of the earth science field, and what type of projects you want to join in the future?
them. Well, that's a really tough question. I mean, NASA is continually working to develop better satellites that can provide,
Yes.
in
Good
some
remote
cases,
sensing data.
different types of information, either at a higher
Mhm.
resolution, something finer where we can see a system more closely, or in some cases even a higher temporal resolution, though it's already daily data in many cases is already available with certain sensors. The PACE mission, PACE, uh, plankton, PACE, plankton aerosol, PACE, something. I forgot what the C is. I'll come back to that. The PACE
Okay.
mission
Uh-huh.
is one that has the potential to offer new information to help us with a lot of science studies in some of the nearshore areas that we've been talking about
Mhm.
that are hard to study. Problems. You think about problems in the world and what's most important, and it's kind of hard to say, but I mean, certainly food security is one of the things that is
Yes.
extremely important. And the university here, along with Auburn University in Alabama, is working on a project is working to do environmental studies, uh,
Yes.
and also to assist farmers in irrigating more agricultural land or getting irrigation systems
Mhm.
for existing agricultural land to help really sustain crop yields, which crop yields, excuse me, equals sustained food security. I mean,
Yes.
the risk that we have in folks that are growing food or farmers all over the world in some cases is water availability. I mean,
Mm.
if you have a drought, you may lose your crop. If you lose your crop, there may not be food for certain populations. And so having some certainty that you're going to have water to sustain your crops and provide that, food for the different areas where it's being distributed is a critical need all over the world. So I think that's something that I'm involved with that's really exciting. Um,
Mhm.
and it's something I think that is, critical in certain parts of the world. Certainly right now, if you look at the drought that's occurring in the western United States, it's,
Yes.
it's really catastrophic. And so when the drought is, of course, severe enough, even if you have irrigation systems, if your water supply becomes depleted enough, even then you can't necessarily meet the needs of the farmers. Um, so that's a major problem, I think, in different parts of the world, and something climate change is exacerbating that I think is really important. Um, I'm not involved in any population studies, but I think worldwide population growth is a major
It's
concern.
also amazing concern.
Sustainability of resources all over the world, and something that our scientists are certainly involved in, trying to help address that problem in different ways.
Mhm.
The Socioeconomic Data Archive Center that NASA supported at Columbia University provides a wealth of data on population, historical, and projected, to help scientists have that kind of data in different parts of the world, to try to help look at resource depletion and how that relates to changes in population or growing populations in particular. And so I think that's really important. And there is a social dimensions track within the Earth System Science program. And some of the students that are in that track, I think, are interested in problems like this.
So here in Huntsville, this program, like at the US?
Yes, that's one of the tracks in the Earth System Science degree program, in addition to IS remote sensing.
I see. Okay, that's like there are a lot of amazing projects NASA is working on to develop the earth science and make sure the entire system and the kind of the harmonies between the human and nature is sustained over the longer period of time. So yeah, I'm totally agree with your and I'm glad these projects are like getting popularity, and a lot of students are involved in this type of projects is so vital, I guess, to develop the entire ecosystem. Very the habitat must be a livable. So
Well, and Tucker, as I probably should mention, it's very relevant to your question. I mean, the fact that we've been working with the CDC, the group here, and others at NASA for a long time, and there's a lot of interest in disease vectors. We've done some projects studying dengue fever disease vectors in Mexico, and of course we have COVID now. So just understanding any of the environmental covariates that may be important in terms of the spread of different infectious diseases is certainly something that NASA data can be used for, and is something that's of critical importance to the whole world, as we can see right now, because when we have a serious disease that is not very well controlled, it tends to affect everything we do. It affects our daily life, it affects our health, our economy, and certainly it affects in some ways probably our environment.
Yeah, so also like the environment, the entire the change in the environment also affect this disease control and the transportation of the disease from one point to another, or maybe how to control that disease. Also, earth science data and the NASA data will help in that sense too, for the hospitals or the bigger research institute in health science. Yes. So, can you talk a little bit about your past publications, any research work or books you have published? So, can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, a little bit on books.
Yeah.
I contributed to some work with other co-authors here on it's actually it's a book called the Encyclopedia of Atmospheric Sciences, and I was co-author on a section on urban heat islands. I also was co-author on a section on urban heat islands in a book called Our Changing Planet that was published actually in 2007. I was also a contributing author to a reference book for planning and urban design standards in the past. And I have a chapter on a book that's focused on horseshoe crabs, on the work I did in the Gulf of Mexico. Let me see remember the exact name of the book offhand. Oh, here we go. Yeah, I was lead author on a chapter on Molts Reveal Life History Patterns for American Horseshoe Crabs in Fringe Habitats. And that's a chapter in a book, Changing Global Perspectives on Horseshoe Crab Biology, Conservation and Management. And that was actually published in 2015. So those are some of the books.
So that's really nice because the publications like So you said you are also a lot of co-authors in the book and the publication. So can you like suggest for even like high school undergrad or any grad students who want to join and pursue higher study in earth science, like or maybe in the future join in the NASA or NSSTC or any other organization, like what a suggestion you should suggest for that type of students who want to make world as a better place?
Well, I mean, I know seeing my own kids and go through that period and decide what they wanted to do. And I guess I
Yes.
can recall my own struggles in deciding for sure. I was not one of these people that grew up knowing I always wanted to be a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer. I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. And I think that's true of a lot of young people. But I
Yes.
think the thing I would encourage you to do if you think you're interested in the earth sciences is certainly in your curricula, and whether it's in high school or even early in undergraduate school, take as many courses as broadly as you can, and
Mhm.
really see what's out there. I mean, take courses in different disciplines to try to see what you really like. I mean, until you maybe take a course at some level of biology or geology or climate or some aspect of the physical system, you may not really know whether you're that interested or not, and you may not have any appreciation or enough appreciation, maybe I should say, as
Yes.
to what the possibilities are. I know that was one of my challenges when I was in that period, which is before the internet. But with the internet, you got a real
Yeah.
resource here to find out a lot more. But you can imagine before the internet, and you grow up in a modest sized town, it was really hard to know what you could do. You didn't know what
Yes.
the possibilities were. But now, I mean, cast your net wide, use the
Yeah.
internet,
Internet.
uh,
Yeah.
take some courses in different areas, try to get a feel for what the possibilities are. And the other thing, when I was like a lot of high school students, probably, you just maybe didn't always want to take the hardest courses. You wanted to make sure you made good grades, and
Yes.
and that's fine. But one of the things that really I think separates students that are interested in the sciences in general from the rest of the student population is math ability. Take a good bit of mathematics, take some statistics. I mean, go ahead and don't be scared to jump in and develop some quantitative skills. I mean, that's going to help. That's going to only help you, and it's going to help you do more interesting analysis in the sciences and areas that interest you, which is going to translate into you having more skills that is going to help you probably get a job easier, get in the graduate school you want easier, and just really to be more successful. So, take some math, take some quantitative skills, cast your net wide, look for these internship programs, even at the high school level and certainly at the college level. NASA and other federal agencies offer an awful lot of opportunities.
Yes.
And if you be proactive and find a way to get in an agency like the NSSTC here or Marshall Space Flight Center or other NASA
Yes.
centers, work with some people, and that's going to really help you do some interesting things. You'll meet lots of interesting people, and it's going to help you as you go through your education and try to decide what kind of career you want to pursue. It's going to really help you maybe better figure out where your niche may be.
Yes. Yeah. So yeah, that's true. Like I would say, all the students have to more active. So like right now we have the internet in our hand, in our pockets, right? So like if student want to decide their career, literally they can even learn by self learning is also the, I would say, most efficient way to figure out which domain anyone has to have, like want to enter, because right now we have Wikipedia or even the YouTube will be also the good resource to learn different things. And another thing you have mentioned, the math ability. Yeah, I want to highly stress that point, because as you said earlier, during the surveys or anything, you might not get the full data. So how that data you have to process, and the uh, different equations on the climate physics and all that. So if you have math in your hand, it will be very easy to deal with that type of problem. And one of my professor used to say is that physics is the kind of king of the science, and math is the queen of the science.
There you go. That's
So
right.
yeah, so like you, without queen, you can like king is not king is alone. So yeah, yeah, math is
Queen.
yeah. That's sure. That's sure. So yeah, mathability is so much vital. So let's jump into the current situation about the entire globe. So what's your you think about what type of challenges anti-humanity currently facing in terms of the sustained ecosystem? One of the example I can think of is global warming, right? And also the currently we are facing the pandemic and COVID-19 situation. Uh, like it is it's the curves might be different, but the spread is also depend on the ecological like the environmental change. So what type of other possible threats you think of for humanity in terms of earth science?
Well, I think you mentioned one of the big ones is climate change is obviously a
Yes.
big challenge
Hmm.
going forward. You know, we know things are changing and they're changing more rapidly we think than they have before based on what understanding that we have, but it's still hard, I think, to know when tipping points may occur that where you would have some significant changes that start to affect populations and security and
Yes.
economic issues and so forth. So um, that's a big one. I already mentioned population. I mean, I just think the
Yeah.
demand for growing global population on natural resources is something everyone should be concerned about, and I think that really underscores the need for the term you hear all the time of sustainable development or just sustainable
Yes.
living. I mean,
Mhm.
I think we all need to do all we can to do simple things like recycle. I mean, to try to uh, manage a finite um, resource pool of energy sources, and
Mhm.
also to, in part, mitigate a growing problem of garbage disposal. I mean, the more things we can recycle, the less things we have to put in the garbage, and it has to go in a
Yes.
landfill or has to find some place to live.
Mhm.
Uh, and, and nobody wants to live next to a landfill, right? You don't want to live next to a garbage dump, and if they're not done correctly, they can pollute groundwater, which is where we get a lot of our drinking water. So it is critical, I think, that we address those problems effectively. Um, so those are just huge drivers, and there's a lot of other small, I guess, smaller concerns that actually relate back to those two large drivers or stressors on really the future security and viability of the population as well as natural resources too.
Mm.
So I don't know, probably just belaboring the point to go on and
Yeah.
on about that, but I mean, overfishing is, I think, a big concern. I
Yeah.
mean, our oceans provide a lot of food for the world, especially in coastal communities and in some
Mhm.
coastal communities that culturally, I mean, there's a culture associated with the sea with different food sources, and it's getting harder and harder to
Yeah.
sustain that culture and that food supply for those communities. And
Mhm.
so you not only have a food security issue, you're basically, in some cases, destroying a culture for indigenous peoples that have depended on the sea as a way of life, and they
Yeah.
can't anymore.
Mhm.
Small family farms across the country, in this country, for example, and I'm sure others too. It is
Mhm.
harder and harder for that niche sometimes to be maintained. Small
Yeah.
family farms
It's
are disappearing in many areas because they can't survive, and the stresses of climate, the stresses
Mhm.
of not having certainty of a water supply or being able to
Yeah.
have sustainable crops is a problem.
Okay.
So I'm
Yeah.
not sure I answered your question that well, but anyway.
Yeah. It's well enough. It's well enough. Yeah. So like to addressing this issue. So what are the roles? Not the science student, but like I'm engineer. So what type of role the engineers can contribute to sustainability? Like what are the uh, like areas the engineers can involve?
Well, as you know, I'm not an engineer, but I can give you an opinion.
Yeah, what are the like the small chunk the engineers can contribute? Because like all of the like most of the engineers, I'm assuming that they are like little bit decent math ability. Yeah, crunching the numbers, number crunching is kind of our day-to-day job. So yeah, what type of areas we can contribute as engineers?
Well, I mean, engineers are critical in numerous areas, of course. I mean, there's a lot of talk right now about infrastructure in the United States and all over the world, and engineers are critical to
Yes.
upgrading and modernizing our infrastructure from
Mhm.
roads to water and sewer
Yes.
systems to
Mhm.
transportation facilities, more modern airports,
Yes.
and just new construction as our cities grow, more modern buildings, mechanical systems, more energy efficient systems,
Yes.
more energy efficient uh, airplanes,
Yeah.
and buses and trains. And so,
Mhm. Mhm.
I mean, engineers are essential. I mean, in terms of the space program, obviously, in developing different type of engines so that we can explore space and outer planets, as well as going back to the moon and maintaining satellites in space for long periods of time and proper orbits and
Yes.
all. So, I mean, engineers and scientists are both essential, and
They.
in many cases,
Yeah.
not only need but do work hand in hand to make sure
Yes.
that we have successful missions and really successful outcomes to a lot of different projects. I think that makes life better for all of us.
Yeah, that's definitely true. So let's talk about your personal interest. So I know you are the ocean person, right?
I like the
Which
ocean. Yeah.
type? Huh?
I like the
Yeah.
ocean. Yes.
Yes. So what are the like areas you have visited? What are the best places you have visited till so far, and what other areas you want to explore?
Okay. Well, I've been blessed to be able to visit many areas of the U.S. and Mexico, part of Central America, and South America.
Mhm.
I have not visited uh, Europe, Africa, or Asia. And some of the places I've enjoyed the most, I loved Hawaii. The Hawaiian Islands are beautiful. I was able to
Yes.
visit
Mhm.
Oahu and Maui, and those are wonderful places. There, I've been to Costa Rica. That's a beautiful
Mhm.
country.
Yes.
Natural resources and ecological diversity is just astounding.
Mhm.
Um, I live now most of the time when I'm not up at the university in North Alabama in Inlet Beach, Florida. That's a beautiful place. I really like being there. The Gulf Coast Gulf Coast of Florida is a really great place to live, and it's a tremendous tourist attraction too.
Mhm.
Um, I would like to go to Europe. I'm interested in going a lot of places in Europe actually. Greece, Italy, the
Yeah.
Scandinavian area, Norway. I mean,
Mhm.
places. I mean, I'd love to go all over Europe. I would love to go to France and England, Germany.
Right.
So, uh, and another place I've always had an interest in going is
Uh,
uh, Australia, New Zealand, actually French Polynesia. That would be
yes.
just a fantastic part of the world to visit, and probably would suit my like with
Yeah.
the ocean and warm weather and fish and those sorts of things. So I think I would really enjoy going there someday. Hopefully,
Yeah. I would say you more like the ocean plus mountains.
probably so. But
Yeah, like
in Hawaii, you got the oceans and the mountains right together. So
oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's true. So what type of other like recreational activity? So all the people like as you become a scientist or any higher positions, it's critical to be the the your mental health is also become more important because you affect a lot of people. So what type of recreational activity you have done to freshen up, and when you stuck in the middle of the research work, what type of activities you used to do?
well, that's a really good point. You're right. I mean, everybody needs some downtime and to kind of
Yeah.
recharge your batteries. I mean, I have some hobbies I like a lot. I play some golf.
Mm-hmm.
I like to do that when I can. I like to get out and hike some. I have a dog that I'm very fond of, and so Chipper and I will go out and do some hiking in the state parks and trails. I enjoy getting on the water if I can. But fishing, boat, or kayak, paddling. I
Yeah.
mean, I like doing that. I think that's really relaxing.
Mm-hmm.
I like music. I mean, I'm older. I mean, I like some of the oldies music,
Oh
60s kind
yeah.
of music.
Yes. Yeah. Country
The Beach
music.
Boys and stuff like that. That
Yeah.
kind of music in those times. So that's nice. And I mean, and I do just like traveling. I mean, I work traveling is fine. I enjoy that too, but just recreational traveling is nice.
Yeah.
It's a
Yes.
good
Yes.
way to, I think, unwind and just take a long drive and see some things, or a
Mm-hmm.
plane trip. Uh, so that's about it, I guess. Yeah.
I see. I see. Well, so any final remark for the like UA student or any other general student who is like we already talked about a lot of things for the students, but any final touch you want to add?
Well, as a student, especially
Mhm.
if you're a graduate student, I would say, as an undergrad, cast your net wide, figure out what you want to do, study hard.
Yes, yeah. But they're like the students who are in the research path of the earth science, because yeah, after graduation, you already decide to if you're in the grad school, you decide to stay in that domain for at least 10 years or 10 to 15 years, to build up the career. What type of advice you want to give the younger researcher? I would say.
Well, if you're talking about a grad student or somebody, I know when I was in grad school or actually PhD, I know I had a committee member tell me one of those times when you have a lot of late nights, you're tired a lot.
Yeah.
In my case, I was trying to work while I was trying to finish PhD, so that was even a bigger challenge.
Yes.
Um, and this particular individual said, just remember, it's partly an endurance test, and
Mm.
it is. So you just got to hang in there and keep plugging away.
Yeah.
Remember the story of the tortoise and the hare. Well, the hare jumped way ahead and lost his
Yeah.
focus, and then the tortoise just kept plugging. And he finally passed him at the finish line. So I think you got to just hang in there, do your work, try to enjoy the journey a little bit, even though it's hard sometimes when it's difficult. But don't just be thinking about the end. Try to enjoy the process. Try to learn. Try to not make it be drudgery, and that degree and that job will come.
Yes.
Um, the other thing, I've been blessed to be able to kind of change my career path a little bit after 10 or 15 years. You mentioned
Yeah.
get out,
Yeah.
you can work, especially early in your career. It's not bad to even then to be getting some experience in some different areas. And then
Yes.
after working for a period of time,
Mhm.
again, if you've gone through a graduate program, master's or PhD, certainly you're going to should have some skills that would allow you to apply them to a lot of different kind of problems. So
Yeah.
go ahead and maybe explore some things with those first couple of jobs or postdoc maybe, and then an initial job or two. Don't be afraid to make a change, and then maybe 10 or 15 years down the road, if you kind of want to go in a different direction, you may be able to.
Yeah, yeah, and I think I would say like if you are in the research work as I'm right now as a grad student, like irrespective of the field, when you do research, it kind of induce the self learning instead of the when you take a coursework, you already have a like particular syllabuses lined up. But when you're doing research, there are a lot of uncertainties and the challenges. So I think when any student enter in this area, so it will train us to how to handle the challenges and uncertainty. Irrespective of the field, I would say. Yeah. So.
That's right. And one thing I should add,
Mhm.
the worst mistake you could make is after you finish that degree, undergraduate,
Mhm.
master's, or PhD, is
Yeah.
to think your learning's over. Learning
Yeah.
is a lifelong process. And if you want to be successful long term, and if you want to have certainly the ability to do different things in your career, you must keep learning. Keep taking advantage of continuing education opportunities. Keep taking a
Yes.
class now and then that interests you. Keep
Mhm.
learning. And
Yeah. Yeah.
because that's
Keep-
necessary. The world's changing too fast. You have to keep learning.
Yeah, that's true. Because like in the digital world, each and every field is changing. Like maybe at least in the 6 years, 6 months, any new things come up, and if you are like in the specialized in that field, you have to keep learning. And I would say persistence is the key in any endeavors of the humankind. So yeah, persistence is very important in the learning process too. Yeah.
I certainly agree
Well,
with that.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Estes, to joining this podcast. I would have a pleasure to have you in my podcast. I had a wonderful time to learning about the earth science, what type of challenges we are facing right now, and how the students can contribute in this endeavors. So, thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Chris. I enjoyed talking to you.
Okay, have a nice day.
You too. Bye bye.